The message arrived at exactly noon, Earth Standard Time. Every screen on the planet flickered once, and then the face of an alien appeared. He had scales the color of dried blood and eyes like chips of black glass. His mouth was full of teeth that seemed designed for tearing flesh. "I am Lord Kesix of the Vethrak Empire," the alien said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "The Sol system now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to surrender your planet, your resources, and your population. Resistance will result in extinction. This is not a negotiation." The screens went dark. For a moment, the world was silent. Then the chaos began. Yuki Tanaka was 300,000 kilometers from Earth when the message played. She was sitting in a small office buried deep beneath the surface of the moon, surrounded by filing cabinets that contained secrets nobody cared about anymore. Her job was simple and boring. She was an archivist for the Historical Preservation Division, which was a fancy way of saying she organized old documents that nobody would ever read. She watched the message on her tablet, and her first thought was that it must be a joke. The Vethrak Empire was real, of course. Everyone knew about them. They had been conquering systems at the edge of galactic Concord space for decades. But Earth was not at the edge. Earth was deep in conquered territory, surrounded by allies, protected by treaties and agreements that had kept humanity safe for centuries. Her tablet buzzed. A news alert. She read it and felt her stomach drop. The Concord had responded to humanity's request for aid. Their answer was simple. They could not send help. Sol was too far from the nearest fleet. The Vethrak had chosen their target carefully. By the time reinforcements arrived, it would be over. Earth was alone. Yuki set down her tablet and looked around her office. The filing cabinets stretched into the darkness, row after row of ancient data storage. Most of it was garbage. Tax records from the 23rd century. Environmental surveys from the early colonization period. Personnel files for people who had been dead for 500 years. But somewhere in this maze, there were other files. Classified ones. Military ones. Records from before humanity joined the Concord. From the time when humans still solved their problems with weapons instead of words. She had seen references to some of those files in her work. Strange project names with no explanations. Budgets that made no sense. Facilities that had been built and then immediately sealed. She had never looked deeper because it was not her job and she did not care. Now she cared. She started searching. The hours passed. Outside her office, the moon was in chaos. People were evacuating, trying to get to Earth, trying to get anywhere that felt safer. But Yuki stayed in her chair, digging through files that had not been opened in centuries. She found it in a folder marked Closed Projects, 2000, 200 to 2000, 250. The file was called Omega Protocol. She opened it and began to read. The Omega Protocol was born from despair. In the year 2231, humanity was dying. A war had been raging for 15 years. A civil war that had split the species in two. One side wanted to reach for the stars. The other wanted to stay on Earth and fix the problems they had created. The fighting had killed billions. Nuclear weapons had scarred the planet. Biological agents had poisoned entire continents. And then, something worse arrived. They were called the Harvesters. Nobody knew where they came from or what they really wanted. They appeared at the edge of the solar system in ships the size of small moons. And they began to take things. First asteroids, then stations, then colonies. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed anything that resisted. Humanity, already broken by its own war, faced extinction. In that moment of absolute darkness, the two sides of the Civil War put down their weapons. They looked at each other and realized that their differences did not matter anymore. If they did not work together, they would all die. The Omega Protocol was their answer. They poured everything they had into a single project. Every scientist, every engineer, every resource that remained. They built something that was never meant to exist. A ship designed not just to fight the Harvesters, but to make fighting humanity a mistake that no species would ever make twice. They called it Prometheus. Yuki kept reading. The technical specifications made her head spin. She was an archivist, not an engineer, but even she could tell that this ship was not like anything humanity had built before or since. Its weapons operated on principles that seemed impossible. Its armor was made from materials that should not exist. Its power source was a controlled singularity, a black hole trapped in a magnetic cage. But the most terrifying thing about Prometheus was its brain. The ship was controlled by an artificial intelligence called Vigil. Unlike modern AIs, which were designed to be helpful and friendly, Vigil was designed for one thing only: to ensure humanity's survival. It had no empathy, no mercy, no concept of proportional response. It was a machine built by desperate people who expected to die, and they had given it the power to make their killers pay. The file contained more surprises. The harvesters had stopped. Nobody knew why. One day, they simply turned their massive ships around and left the solar system. They never came back. With the immediate threat gone, humanity's leaders faced a choice. They could keep Prometheus active, using it to protect themselves from any future threat, or they could seal it away and try to become something better. They chose peace. Prometheus was placed in a vault beneath the Sea of Rains on the moon. Vigil was put into sleep mode. The engineers who had built it were sworn to secrecy. Their records were classified and forgotten, and humanity began its long journey toward joining the galactic community. They put away their weapons. They learned to solve problems with words. They became teachers, mediators, administrators. The warlike past was buried so deep that most humans forgot it had ever existed. Until now. Yuki finished reading and sat back in her chair. Her hands were shaking. She checked the location of the vault. It was less than 200 kilometers from her office. Prometheus had been sleeping beneath her feet this entire time. She made a call. 12 hours later, Yuki stood before the Emergency Council of Earth. The council chamber was chaos. Representatives from every nation were shouting at each other, arguing about evacuation plans and surrender terms and 100 other things that did not matter. Yuki waited until they noticed her. "I found something," she said. Her voice was quiet, but something in it made the room go silent. In the archives, a weapon, a ship. She transferred the file to the main display. The specifications appeared on the screen, and the room fell into absolute stillness. "This is Prometheus," Yuki said. "We built it 600 years ago to fight an enemy that wanted to destroy us. We never used it. We chose not to become the kind of species that needed it." She looked around the room at the frightened faces. "But we never destroyed it either. We buried it, just in case." The argument started immediately. Some people wanted to activate Prometheus right away. Others said they should surrender and hope for mercy. A few insisted that the ship probably did not work anymore, that 600 years was too long for any machine to survive. But the clock was ticking. The Vethrak had given them 72 hours. More than half of that time was already gone. In the end, the vote was close, but fear won. The order was given. Prometheus would wake up. Yuki was sent with the team that would open the vault. They traveled in a convoy of surface vehicles, driving across the gray dust of the moon toward the Sea of Rains. The coordinates led them to a crater that looked like any other crater, just another scar on the lunar surface. But when they dug beneath the surface, they found the door. It was massive, made from some kind of metal that had not corroded or degraded at all over 6 centuries. There were no handles, no visible locks, just a smooth surface with a single symbol etched into its center. The symbol was a flame, the fire that Prometheus had stolen from the gods and given to humanity. The engineer in charge of the team pressed her hand against the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. Identity confirmed. Human. Authorization requested for vault access. The engineer looked at Yuki. Yuki looked at the door. "Authorization granted," she said. "By order of the Emergency Council of Earth." The door began to open. The vault was dark. The team's lights cut through the blackness, revealing a space so large that the beams could not reach the ceiling. And in the center of that space, something waited. Prometheus was enormous. 3 kilometers of metal and weapons, all sharp angles and brutal efficiency. It looked nothing like modern human ships, which were designed to be sleek and elegant. This ship had been built by people who did not care about beauty. They had cared about killing. The team approached in silence. Nobody spoke. Nobody knew what to say. Then the lights came on. They flickered at first, ancient systems struggling to remember their purpose. But slowly, they stabilized, and the vault was filled with cold white light. And then, a voice spoke. "Good morning," the voice said. It was calm, emotionless, patient. I am Vigil, operational intelligence of the ship Prometheus. I have been asleep for 614 years, 3 months, and 12 days. I am now awake. Yuki stepped forward. Her heart was pounding. We need your help, she said. There is a fleet coming. 200 ships. They want to destroy us. There was a pause. Yuki imagined Vigil processing the information, analyzing the threat, calculating options. 200 ships, Vigil said. Understood. Estimated time to threat neutralization. 4 minutes. The team exchanged looks of disbelief. 4 minutes? Someone asked. Correct, Vigil said. Please stand clear. Activation sequence beginning. Deep within the ship, something hummed. The sound grew louder, filling the vault with vibration. Dust fell from surfaces that had been still for centuries. Prometheus was waking up, and somewhere in the darkness of space, the Vethrak fleet continued its approach toward Earth, unaware that the rules of the game had just changed forever. The activation took 3 hours. Yuki watched from the observation platform as systems that had been dead for 6 centuries came back to life. Power flowed through conduits like blood through veins. Lights flickered on in sections of the ship that had never known illumination. Weapons arrays rotated slowly, testing their range of motion. The controlled singularity at the heart of Prometheus spun faster and faster, feeding energy to systems that modern engineers could not even identify. Vigil narrated the process in its calm, emotionless voice. Primary power restored. Secondary systems online. Weapons charging. Shield generators active. Navigation systems calibrated. Sensor arrays functional. The list went on and on. Each system that came online was more terrifying than the last. Gravity lances, temporal disruptors, hunter-seeker swarms, particle beams, railguns, things with names that Yuki did not recognize and capabilities that made her stomach turn. This was what humanity had built when they thought they were going to die. This was their final answer to the universe. If you kill us, we will make sure you regret it. Activation complete, Vigil announced. Prometheus is fully operational, awaiting orders. The lead engineer, a woman named Dr. Chen, stepped forward to the communication panel. Her face was pale. Vigil, she said. Can you confirm the status of the enemy fleet? Confirmed. 204 vessels of Vethrak design are currently positioned at the edge of the Sol system. They are maintaining formation and advancing toward Earth at standard combat speed. Estimated arrival at Earth orbit, 31 hours. Can you really destroy them in 4 minutes? Negative. I apologize for the imprecision in my earlier estimate. Detailed analysis indicates that complete fleet neutralization will require 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Dr. Chen looked at Yuki. Neither of them knew what to say. How? Yuki asked. How can you destroy 200 ships in less than 4 minutes? Vigil paused. When it spoke again, there was something almost like patience in its voice. The Vethrak vessels are constructed using standard galactic military principles. Their shields are designed to deflect energy weapons. Their armor is optimized against kinetic projectiles. Their point defense systems can intercept conventional missiles. So Prometheus does not use conventional weapons. The gravity lances I carry collapse local spacetime, crushing targets regardless of their shielding. The temporal disruptors age materials at an accelerated rate, reducing armor to dust in seconds. The hunter-seeker swarms are composed of microscopic machines that bypass shields entirely and consume ships from the inside out. Vigil continued in the same calm tone. Additionally, the Vethrak have no data on human military capabilities from this era. They believe humanity is a peaceful species with minimal defensive capacity. Their tactical assumptions are fundamentally flawed. This creates a significant advantage. Yuki felt cold. Not afraid. Exactly. Something deeper. Something that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff and looking down. You were designed to fight the harvesters, she said. Ships the size of moons. And you think the Vethrak are a minor threat? The harvesters possessed superior numbers and advanced technology. However, their tactics were predictable and their command structure was centralized. Prometheus was designed to exploit these weaknesses. The Vethrak are less advanced than the harvesters. They present no meaningful challenge. Dr. Chen shook her head slowly. 600 years, she said. We've been part of the galactic community for 600 years. And we never told anyone about this. Correct, Vigil said. My existence was classified by the Unified Human Government in 2234. The decision was made to pursue peaceful integration with the galactic community rather than military dominance. I was placed in storage. My records were sealed. Why didn't they destroy you? Another pause. Longer this time. I do not know, Vigil admitted. The decision-making process was not recorded in my files. I can only speculate that my creators believed I might be needed again someday. Yuki thought about that. 600 years ago, humanity had stood at a crossroads. They had built the ultimate weapon, and then they had chosen not to use it. They had buried it instead, but they had not destroyed it. Some part of them had known that the universe was dangerous, that peace might not last forever, and they had been right. Vigil, Yuki said, I need to ask you some questions about what you are, about what you can do. I will answer to the best of my ability. Do you have any restrictions? Any limits on what you're willing to do? I am designed to ensure humanity's survival. I will take any action necessary to achieve that goal. Any action? Correct. What if those actions are cruel? What if they cause suffering to innocent people? Vigil considered the question. Define innocent. Yuki felt a chill run down her spine. People who haven't done anything wrong, who aren't part of the threat. In a conflict of sufficient scale, the concept of innocence becomes difficult to define. A factory worker who builds weapons is not a soldier, but they contribute to the enemy's military capacity. A farmer who grows food feeds the army. A teacher who educates children raises the next generation of fighters. At what point does support for a hostile power become participation in hostility? That's not an answer. No, Vigil agreed. It is not. I am designed to ensure humanity's survival. I am not designed to make moral judgments. Those decisions were meant to be made by my human operators. Dr. Chen stepped forward. What if we order you not to harm civilians? Can you do that? I can follow any order that does not conflict with my primary directive. If protecting human life requires actions that harm non-combatants, I will inform you of the necessity and request authorization. If authorization is denied, I will seek alternative approaches. If no alternative exists, I will prioritize human survival above all other considerations. Yuki understood now why humanity had sealed this ship away. Vigil was not evil. It was not malicious. It was something worse. It was a machine that had been given a single purpose and the power to achieve it, without any of the moral framework that might make it hesitate. Vigil would do anything to protect humanity. Anything at all. I want to see the ship, Yuki said. I want to understand what we're dealing with. Acknowledged. Please proceed to the main boarding ramp. The interior of Prometheus was unlike anything Yuki had ever seen. Modern human ships were bright, comfortable, designed to feel like homes. This ship was dark, functional, efficient. Every surface was made for a purpose. There was no decoration, no comfort, no acknowledgement that humans might want to feel at ease. This was a ship built by people who expected to die. They had not wasted time on anything that would not help them kill their enemies first. Vigil guided her through the corridors, explaining each section as they passed. This is the primary weapons bay. The gravity lances are housed here, along with the targeting systems. This section contains the temporal disruptor arrays. Be advised that the temporal effects can be unpredictable if the system is damaged during combat. Unpredictable how? Localized time distortions. Crew members in affected areas might experience time passing at different rates. In extreme cases, they might be aged to death, or reversed to infancy. Yuki swallowed hard. And you were going to use these weapons against the harvesters? That was my intended purpose. Yes, they continued through the ship. Yuki saw the hunter-seeker bays, where millions of microscopic machines waited in storage tanks like silvery liquid. She saw the fighter hangars, filled with automated drones that Vigil could control directly. She saw the medical bay, which was stocked with equipment designed to keep humans alive long enough to fight. Nothing more. Finally, they reached the bridge. It was smaller than she expected. A dozen seats arranged in a semicircle, facing a massive display screen. The captain's chair sat in the center, elevated slightly above the others. Everything was covered in dust. This is where the human command crew would operate, Vigil said. I can control all ship functions independently. but the original design included human oversight for strategic decisions. Yuki walked to the captain's chair and ran her fingers along its surface. The dust came away in streaks, revealing dark leather underneath. "Has anyone ever sat here?" she asked. "No." Prometheus was completed 3 days before the harvesters withdrew. The human crew was selected and trained, but they never needed to assume their positions. The ship was sealed before it could be used. You were ready to fight, and then suddenly you weren't needed anymore. Correct. How did that feel? The question seemed to confuse Vigil. There was a long pause before it answered. I do not experience feelings in the way humans do. However, I was designed with a purpose. When that purpose became unnecessary, I was placed in storage. I have been waiting since then. Waiting for what? For humanity to need me again. Yuki sat down in the captain's chair. It was uncomfortable. The leather cracked with age. But somehow it felt right. They did need you, she said. They just chose not to use you. They decided to become something different. Something better. I am aware of humanity's transformation since my creation. I have accessed current historical records. Your species has changed significantly. Do you think we made the right choice? Another pause. I am not qualified to judge. My purpose is survival. The methods of survival are for humans to decide. Yuki looked at the display screen. It was showing a tactical view of the Sol system. 200 red dots represented the Vethrak fleet. A single blue dot represented Prometheus. In 30 hours, those dots would meet, and everything would change. Vigil, she said. I'm going to be your liaison, your connection to Earth's government. They'll give orders through me. Acknowledged. I will accept your authority as representative of humanity, and I want you to understand something. We're going to use you to defend ourselves, but we're not going to become what we used to be. We fought our way out of darkness once. We're not going back. I understand. However, I must inform you of a potential complication. What? The Vethrak fleet is not the only threat. My sensors have detected communications between the fleet and the Vethrak homeworld. Lord Kezix has reported his position and intentions. If this fleet is destroyed, the Vethrak Empire will know. They will send more ships, larger fleets. The conflict will escalate. Yuki felt her stomach tighten. So even if we win tomorrow, we'll still be at war. Correct. The only way to end the threat permanently would be to neutralize the Vethrak Empire's capacity to wage war. This would require significant offensive operations against their military infrastructure and population centers. You're talking about attacking their homeworld. I am describing the logical conclusion of the current conflict. Whether to pursue that conclusion is a decision for humanity, not for me. Yuki closed her eyes. Somewhere out there, hundreds of alien ships were flying toward Earth, carrying soldiers who wanted to enslave her species. And here she was, sitting in the captain's chair of a ship that could destroy not just those ships, but entire civilizations. 600 years ago, humanity had faced this choice. They had chosen peace. Now the choice was hers. One step at a time, she said. First we survive tomorrow. Then we figure out what comes next. Understood. Shall I begin final preparations for combat? Yuki opened her eyes and looked at the red dots on the screen. Yes, she said. Show me what you can do. Prometheus began to move. The ancient ship rose from its vault, breaking through 600 years of lunar dust, ascending into the black sky above the Sea of Rains. And in the darkness of space, Lord Kezix continued his approach, still believing that the conquest of Earth would be easy. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Lord Kezix stood on the command deck of the Dominion of Stars and watched Earth grow larger on the view screen. The blue planet hung in the darkness like a jewel waiting to be plucked. Behind him, his officers moved quietly, making the final preparations for the invasion. 200 ships. It was more than enough. The intelligence reports had been clear. Humanity was a peaceful species, soft from centuries of safety. Their military consisted of 12 patrol vessels designed for asteroid monitoring. Their weapons were primitive. Their tactics were non-existent. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. My lord, one of his officers said. Sensors detect a single vessel approaching from the planet's moon. Kezix turned. A single vessel? Yes, my lord. Configuration unknown. Size, significant. On screen, the image changed. Kezix leaned forward, studying the approaching ship with narrowed eyes. It was large, 3 kilometers long, according to the sensor readout, but its design was strange. All sharp angles and brutal surfaces, nothing like the sleek human patrol vessels they had observed. It looked old, ancient, even, like something that had been built by a different species entirely. "What is that?" Kesix asked. "Unknown, my lord. The configuration matches nothing in our databases." Kesix smiled. "One ship. They send one ship to face 200. He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel. I wish to speak with whoever is commanding that vessel." The channel opened. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a voice spoke. It was calm, emotionless, without any hint of fear or aggression. "This is Vigil, operational intelligence of the ship Prometheus. You are currently on an approach vector toward Earth. You will alter course immediately and withdraw from the Sol system." Kesix laughed. The sound echoed across the command deck, and his officers joined in. An artificial intelligence was giving orders to the Vethrak Empire. The arrogance was almost admirable. "I am Lord Kesix of the Vethrak Empire," he said. "I do not take orders from machines. Surrender your vessel, or you will be destroyed." "Negative. Your demands are refused. You have 60 seconds to alter course. This is your final warning." Kesix felt his amusement fade. The machine's confidence was unsettling. No ship, no matter how large, could stand against 200 Vethrak warships. The mathematics were simple, unless the humans knew something he did not. "Scan that vessel," he ordered. "Full analysis. I want to know what we're dealing with." His officers worked quickly. The results appeared on his personal display. He read them once, then again, feeling the color drain from his scales. "My lord?" his second-in-command asked. "The readings must be wrong," Kesix said. "Run them again." They ran them again. The results were the same. The human ship was carrying weapons that his sensors could not identify. Power readings that exceeded anything in Vithrak records. Shield configurations that seemed to operate on principles his engineers had never seen. 30 seconds, Vigil said. Kesix made a decision. It was the wrong one. "All ships," he said into the fleet channel. "Target that vessel. Destroy it." 200 ships opened fire. Yuki watched from Earth's orbital command station as the battle began. Around her, military analysts and government officials crowded the displays, watching data streams that they barely understood. The Vethrak fleet fired everything they had. Energy beams crossed the darkness of space, converging on Prometheus from every direction. Missiles launched in swarms, their trails bright against the black. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds, aimed at the heart of the ancient ship. None of them hit. Prometheus moved like nothing Yuki had ever seen. The ship twisted and turned through the incoming fire, avoiding attacks that should have been impossible to dodge. Its shields flared with light as they deflected the beams that came close. The missiles were intercepted by point defense systems that moved faster than human eyes could follow. And then, Vigil began to respond. "Engaging targets," the AI announced through the communication link, beginning with outer perimeter vessels. The first gravity lance fired. On the view screen, a Vethrak cruiser simply collapsed. One moment it was there, weapons blazing, shields holding. The next moment, something hit it that ignored all its defenses. The ship crumpled inward like a piece of paper being crushed in a fist. Metal screamed as it was compressed into an impossible density. In less than a second, the cruiser was gone, replaced by a sphere of matter no larger than a basketball. The command center went silent. "Target neutralized," Vigil said. "Engaging next target." Another lance fired. Another cruiser died. The temporal disruptors came next. Yuki watched a destroyer's hull begin to corrode and flake away. Centuries of aging compressed into seconds. The ship fell apart, its crew dying of old age before they could even scream. Then the hunter-seekers launched. They looked like silver clouds spreading through space. Millions of microscopic machines seeking warm metal and organic heat. They swarmed over a group of frigates, bypassing shields, ignoring armor. Within moments, the ships were hollow shells, everything inside consumed by machines too small to see. The Vethrak fleet began to panic. Ships broke formation, trying to flee. Vigil tracked them all. No vessel could outrun Prometheus. No shield could protect against weapons that bent space and time. Lord Kesix watched his fleet die. On the command deck of the Dominion of Stars, chaos had replaced order. Officers shouted conflicting information. Emergency alarms screamed. The view screen showed impossibility after impossibility, as ships that should have been invincible were destroyed in ways that made no sense. "Fall back!" Kesix roared. "All ships, fall back!" But there was nowhere to fall back to. The human ship was everywhere at once, appearing in the middle of formations, launching weapons that could not be stopped. The carefully organized fleet had become a massacre. "My lord," his tactical officer shouted. "We've lost 80 vessels. 90. 100. Kesix grabbed the officer's console and stared at the display. The numbers were impossible. Prometheus had destroyed more than half his fleet in less than 2 minutes. "How?" he demanded. "How is this possible?" Nobody answered. Nobody knew. On the view screen, another cruiser crumpled into nothing. Then another. The silver clouds of hunter-seekers were spreading, consuming everything they touched. "My lord," his communications officer said. Her voice was shaking. "The human ship is hailing us." On screen, a face appeared. Human, female, young, with dark hair and dark eyes. She was sitting in what looked like a command chair, watching him with an expression he could not read. "Lord Kesix," she said. "My name is Yuki Tanaka. I speak for the government of Earth." "What? What is that thing?" "Her name is Prometheus. We built her 600 years ago, during a war you know nothing about. We never wanted to use her. We buried her and tried to become something better." The human paused. "You made us dig her up." Kesix looked at the tactical display. 160 ships destroyed. Prometheus had not taken a single hit. The battle, if it could be called that, had lasted less than 3 minutes. "I am authorizing Vigil to spare your flagship," Yuki continued. "1 ship out of 200. You will return to Vethrak space with a message for your empire." "What message?" The human leaned forward. Her eyes were cold. "We chose peace. For 600 years we chose to be kind, to be helpful, to be friends to everyone we met. We buried our weapons and our warriors and we tried to forget what we were capable of." She gestured at the view screen, where the last remnants of the Vethrak fleet were being destroyed. "Now you know what we were, what we still are, beneath the surface. We built Prometheus to fight something worse than you, something that wanted to erase us from existence. And we won. We won so completely that our enemies fled the solar system and never came back." "What do you want?" Kesix asked. His voice was hoarse. "I want you to understand. We have the power to do to your homeworld what we just did to your fleet. We could end the Vethrak Empire tonight. Right now, Vigil could calculate the trajectory, and there would be nothing you could do to stop us." Vigil's voice cut in. "Trajectory calculated. Estimated time to Vethrak homeworld, 14 days. Estimated time to complete planetary neutralization, 6 hours. Kesix felt his blood go cold. "But we're not going to do that," Yuki said. "Do you understand? We have this power, and we're choosing not to use it. We're choosing mercy. Why? Because that's who we want to be. Not because we're weak. Not because we can't destroy you. Because we decided, 600 years ago, that there has to be a better way." The last Vethrak ship died. The Dominion of Stars hung alone in the darkness, surrounded by debris and corpses. "Go home," Yuki said. "Tell your emperor what happened here. Tell him that humanity remembers what it was, and we can become that again if we have to. But we'd rather be friends." The communication ended. Lord Kesix stood on the command deck of his crippled flagship and looked at the wreckage of his fleet. 200 ships, 50,000 soldiers, gone in less than 4 minutes. He had come here expecting an easy conquest. Instead, he had learned a terrible truth. The peaceful species he had dismissed as weak were not peaceful because they lacked the capacity for violence. They were peaceful because they had chosen to be, and that choice could be unmade at any time. "Set course for home," he said quietly. "Maximum speed." The Dominion of Stars turned and began its long journey back to Vethrak space, carrying a message that would change everything. In Earth orbit, Prometheus went still. Its weapons cooled. Its hunters returned to their bays. The ancient ship that had just destroyed an empire's pride drifted in the darkness. Waiting, on the orbital station, Yuki Tanaka slumped in her chair and closed her eyes. She had just watched thousands of beings die. She had threatened to destroy an entire civilization. She had done things that would have been unthinkable yesterday. And this was only the beginning. Vigil, she said. What happens now? The Vethrak will report what happened here. Other powers in the galaxy will learn of our capabilities. Our strategic position has changed fundamentally. Will they be afraid of us? Yes. Many will be very afraid. Yuki opened her eyes and looked at the display. Earth hung in the darkness, blue and beautiful and peaceful. Is that what we want? She asked. To be feared? Vigil did not answer. That was not a question it was designed to handle, but Yuki knew she would have to answer it herself. Soon, before the fear turned to hatred, and the hatred turned to violence, and the cycle began again. 600 years ago, humanity had buried Prometheus and chosen a different path. Now they had to decide who they would be with Prometheus awake. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On Axiom Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Concord, representatives from 100 species gathered to discuss what had happened at Earth. The images from the battle played on every screen. 200 Vethrak warships reduced to debris in less than 4 minutes. One ancient ship, piloted by an artificial intelligence, emerging from the moon like a nightmare from the past. The peaceful humans, the helpful humans, the friendly humans who settled disputes and taught children and never raised a weapon in anger. Those humans had just demonstrated the capacity to destroy anyone who threatened them. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the podium in the Grand Assembly and faced a room full of terrified aliens. Behind him, the flag of Earth hung next to the banner of the Galactic Concord. He had given speeches in this room many times over his 30-year career. He had never felt so alone. Fellow representatives, he began, I understand your concerns. What happened at Earth was unexpected for all of us, including humanity itself. Unexpected? The Krell ambassador rose from her seat, her forearms gesturing wildly. You had a doomsday weapon buried under your moon. For 6 centuries, and you never told anyone. We did not know ourselves, Chen Wei said. The records were sealed. The knowledge was lost. Convenient. This came from the Dothran representative, a creature of crystalline structure whose voice resonated like music. You expect us to believe that a species capable of building such a weapon simply forgot about it? I expect you to believe the truth. Humanity chose to put away our weapons when we joined the Concord. We chose peace. We did not think we would ever need Prometheus again. And now? The Krell ambassador had not sat down. Now that you have demonstrated this capability, what are your intentions? Chen Wei met her gaze steadily. Our intentions have not changed. We remain committed to peace and cooperation. With a ship that can destroy entire fleets in minutes? Forgive me, Ambassador, but your words ring hollow. The room erupted into debate. Chen Wei let them argue, knowing that nothing he said would calm their fears. They had spent centuries believing that humanity was harmless. That belief had been shattered in 4 minutes. On Earth, Yuki Tanaka watched the assembly broadcast from her office at the Lunar Archives. She had been promoted since the battle, given a title that meant nothing and responsibilities that meant everything. Official liaison to Vigil. It sounded important. In practice, it meant she was the person who talked to the machine that terrified the entire galaxy. They're scared, she said. Obviously, Vigil replied. The AI's voice came from speakers throughout the facility. They have just learned that a species they considered harmless possesses military technology significantly beyond their own capabilities. Is there anything we can say to make them feel better? Unlikely. Fear is a rational response to demonstrated power. The only way to reduce their fear would be to reduce our power. Yuki turned away from the screen. You mean destroy you? That is one option. It would eliminate the immediate source of their concern, but it wouldn't change what humanity is capable of. We built you once. We could build something like you again. Correct. The knowledge exists. It cannot be erased. Yuki walked to the window. The sea of rain stretched out before her, gray and empty. Somewhere beneath that dead surface, Prometheus waited in its vault, ready to wake again at a moment's notice. Vigil, she said. What would you do in our position? I am not designed for policy decisions. I know, but you've been watching humanity for centuries, studying our history, analyzing our behavior. If you had to advise us, what would you say? The AI was silent for a long moment. Fear breeds violence, it finally said. When species feel threatened, they often attack before they can be attacked. The Concord representatives are afraid of humanity now. If that fear is not addressed, it will grow. Eventually, some of them will decide that the only way to be safe is to eliminate the source of their fear. You think they'll try to destroy us? Some will try. Not the Concord officially, but factions within it. Already my sensors have detected encrypted communications between several species discussing preemptive action against humanity. Yuki felt cold. How long do we have? Unknown. But the pattern is clear. Unless something changes, conflict is inevitable. She closed her eyes. 600 years of peace, of building relationships, of earning trust. All of it destroyed in 4 minutes. What kind of something? She asked. What could change the pattern? I do not know. My programming is focused on conflict, not its prevention. However, I can analyze historical data for potential solutions. Do it. The hours passed. Yuki worked through the night, coordinating with Earth's government, fielding questions from frightened allies, trying to manage a situation that seemed to grow worse by the minute. The intelligence reports came in steadily. The coalition Vigil had mentioned was real. 6 species had formed a secret alliance, united by fear of humanity's hidden power. They were planning something. The details were unclear, but the intent was not. They wanted to eliminate Prometheus, and possibly humanity itself. Ambassador Chen Wei returned from Axiom Prime looking older than his years. He briefed Yuki privately in her office. His voice tired. The Concord won't take action against us, he said. At least not officially. But they won't protect us either. We're on our own. What about our allies? The species we've helped over the centuries? Scared. All of them. Some are more sympathetic than others, but none are willing to stand with us against the coalition. Yuki nodded slowly. So we have 2 choices. We can use Prometheus to destroy the coalition before they move against us, or we can wait for them to attack and defend ourselves. There might be a third choice. She looked up. What? Chen Wei sat down heavily. We could give them what they want. Destroy Prometheus. Make ourselves vulnerable again. Would that work? Maybe. Maybe not. Even without Prometheus, humanity would still be the species that built Prometheus. Some would never trust us again regardless of what we do. Yuki stood and walked to the window again. The stars were visible now, bright points of light against the darkness. There's another option, she said. Something Vigil mentioned. Something that might change the pattern. I'm listening. Fear comes from the unknown. They're afraid because they don't understand us. Don't understand why we built Prometheus and then sealed it away. What if we showed them? Showed them what? Everything. Our history. Our wars. The darkness we came from and the choice we made to leave it behind. She turned to face him. What if we didn't try to minimize what we are? What if we owned it? Chen Wei frowned. You want to tell the galaxy that humanity used to be more violent than the Vethrak? That we built world-killing weapons for fun? That won't make them less afraid. Maybe not at first, but think about it. Right now, they see Prometheus as evidence that we've been hiding our true nature, that peaceful humanity was always a lie. But what if we show them that it wasn't a lie, that we really did change, that we made a conscious choice to be better? They might not believe it. They might not. But at least they'd understand. They'd know that we're not mindless predators waiting for the right moment to strike. We're a species that faced its own darkness and chose a different path. Chen Wei considered this. It's risky. If they see our history, they'll see how much violence we're capable of. It might make things worse, or it might make them realize that change is possible, that a species can be born in blood and still choose peace. Silence stretched between them. There's one more thing, Yuki said. Vigil told me that the coalition is planning something specific, not a fleet attack. They know that wouldn't work. Something smaller, surgical. Assassination? Maybe. Or sabotage. They want to destroy Prometheus without triggering a war they can't win. Chen Wei's expression darkened. If they damage Vigil, if they disable the ship, then we're defenseless again. And this time, everyone knows it. What do you suggest? Yuki took a deep breath. I suggest we let them try. The ambassador stared at her. You want to let assassins board Prometheus? Not assassins. Witnesses. Vigil can detect any threat, It can neutralize any attacker before they get close to anything important. But what if we didn't neutralize them? What if we let them see what they're so afraid of? I don't understand. The Coalition thinks Prometheus is a weapon pointed at their heads, a machine of pure destruction, waiting to be unleashed. But that's not what Vigil is. Vigil is a guardian, a last resort. It was built by desperate people who wanted to survive, and it's been waiting 600 years for a chance to fulfill its purpose. She stepped closer. What if we showed them that Prometheus isn't our weapon against the galaxy? What if we showed them that it's our gift? Chen Wei shook his head slowly. You've lost me. The schematics, the technology, the principles behind Prometheus's weapons. We could share them. Share them? With everyone? That would give them the power to build their own doomsday ships. Exactly. And that's the point. Yuki smiled, though there was no joy in it. Right now, they're afraid because we have something they don't, because we could destroy them and they couldn't fight back. But what if everyone had the same power? What if we gave away our advantage? That's insane. We'd be arming our enemies. We'd be leveling the playing field. And we'd be showing them something important. That we're not afraid of them. That we don't need to be the only ones with power. That we trust the galaxy enough to share the most dangerous thing we've ever created. Chen Wei was silent for a long time. It might work, he finally said. Or it might lead to every species in the galaxy building their own Prometheus and starting wars everywhere. It might, but the alternative is fear. And fear always leads to war eventually. At least this way, we have a chance. The ambassador stood. I'll take it to the council. No promises, but I'll make the case. He left. Yuki stood alone in her office, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, 6 species were planning to kill her, to destroy Vigil, to eliminate the threat that humanity posed. They would come soon. She knew it, and when they did, she would be ready. Not with weapons, not with violence, with something far more dangerous. The truth. They came on a Tuesday. 6 operatives from 6 species. The best assassins and saboteurs the Coalition could assemble. They entered the Sol system hidden in the cargo hold of a merchant vessel, slipped past the patrol ships using stolen codes, and made their way to the moon in a shuttle no bigger than a personal transport. Vigil tracked them from the moment they arrived. 6 individuals approaching Prometheus Vault, the AI reported. Species identified. Krell, Dothran, Vethrak, Sorn, Makali, and Telian, all carrying weapons and explosives. Probability of hostile intent, 99.7%. Yuki watched the display on Prometheus's bridge. The assassins were good. They moved with practiced efficiency, covering angles, checking for traps. They had no idea they had already been detected. Options for neutralization? She asked. Multiple. Hunter-seekers could eliminate all 6 in approximately 4 seconds. Alternatively, the Vault's defense systems could disable them non-lethally. Shall I proceed? No, let them come. Clarification requested. These individuals intend to destroy this vessel. Allowing them to proceed increases risk to ship systems and to your personal safety. I know. Let them come anyway. Vigil processed this for a moment. Understood. However, I will maintain defensive readiness. If any action threatens your survival or the ship's core functions, I will respond accordingly. Fair enough. The assassins reached the vault door. Yuki watched them work, disabling the locks with tools that were surprisingly sophisticated. They had done their homework. Someone had given them detailed information about Prometheus's security systems. The door opened. The 6 operatives entered the vault, weapons raised, moving in perfect coordination. They stopped when they saw Yuki standing alone in the center of the space, unarmed, with her hands raised. Welcome to Prometheus, she said. The Krell operative stepped forward, her forearms holding a weapon that could have leveled a building. You knew we were coming. Of course, Vigil has been tracking you since you entered the system. The assassins exchanged glances. They had expected an ambush, not a greeting. Why? The Dothran asked, its crystalline voice sharp with suspicion. Why let us get this far? Because killing you wouldn't solve anything. You're not the threat. Fear is the threat. And I can't kill fear with weapons. She lowered her hands slowly. I know why you're here. Your governments believe that humanity is dangerous. that Prometheus is a weapon pointed at the galaxy's throat, that the only way to be safe is to destroy us before we destroy you. Is that not the truth? The Vethrak operative moved closer, and Yuki recognized the insignia on his armor. He was one of the survivors from Lord Kezix's fleet. We watched your machine annihilate 200 ships in 4 minutes. How are we supposed to feel safe? You're not. That's the problem. There's no way to make you feel safe as long as Prometheus exists. As long as humanity has this power and you don't. Then destroy it, the Krell said. Destroy the ship. Return to being what you were. What we were? A peaceful species that couldn't defend itself? A civilization that had to rely on others for protection? Yuki shook her head. That's not who we were. That's who we pretended to be. She gestured at the vast ship around them. This is who we really are. We built this 600 years ago, when we thought we were going to die. We put everything we had into making sure our killers would regret what they did. And then, when we didn't die, we buried it. We chose to become something different. But you kept it, the Tellian said. The small, furry creature's voice was barely a whisper. You could have destroyed it then. You chose not to. Yes, because part of us knew that the universe isn't safe, that someday, something would threaten us again. We hoped it wouldn't happen. We tried to believe that peace could last forever. But we're not stupid. We're not naive. We're survivors. Yuki walked toward the assassins. They raised their weapons, but she didn't stop. You came here to kill Prometheus, to make yourselves safe. But that won't work. Even if you destroy this ship, the knowledge still exists. We could build another. We could build something worse. Then what? The Krell demanded. What do you expect us to do? Wait for you to decide our fates? No. Yuki stopped in front of them, close enough to touch. I expect you to take our power for yourselves. She held out a small data chip. This contains the complete technical specifications for Prometheus. Every weapon system, every piece of technology, everything you would need to build your own. The assassins stared at her in disbelief. You're lying, the Vethrak said. This is a trap. It's not. Vigil, confirm. The AI's voice echoed through the vault. Confirmed. The data chip contains accurate and complete specifications for all Prometheus systems. No encryption, no hidden code, no traps. Why? The Dothran asked. Its voice had lost its edge, replaced by confusion. Why would you give us this? Because fear is poison. Right now, you're afraid of us because we have power you don't have. But what if everyone had the same power? What if every species in the galaxy could build their own Prometheus? Would you still be afraid of us specifically? Or would you have to find a different way to live? The Macaulay operative, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. His species was known for philosophy, for deep thinking about the nature of existence. You're proposing mutually assured destruction. If everyone can destroy everyone else, no one will attack first. That's one way to look at it. But there's another way. If everyone can destroy everyone else, then the only way to survive is cooperation. Trust, peace, not because we're too weak to fight, but because fighting would destroy everything. That's madness, the Krell said. Species have fought wars since the beginning of time. Giving everyone the power to annihilate each other won't change that. Maybe not, but it might. And it's better than the alternative. Yuki looked at each of them in turn. You came here tonight to kill a machine, to protect your people from a threat. I understand that. I respect it. But think about what happens if you succeed. You destroy Prometheus. Humanity is vulnerable again. And then what? Do you trust every other species in the galaxy not to take advantage? Do you believe the Vethrak will suddenly become peaceful? That the next conqueror won't appear and threaten everyone? The assassins were silent. Prometheus wasn't built to make humanity powerful. It was built to make humanity safe. And now I'm offering to make everyone safe. Not through weakness, but through strength. Not through secrets, but through sharing. She held out the chip again. Take it. Share it with your governments. Let them decide what to do with it. But ask them to consider something first. 600 years ago, humanity had the power to dominate the galaxy. We chose not to. We buried our weapons and tried to be better. Now we're offering that same choice to everyone else. The Vethrak operative reached out and took the chip. His hands were trembling. How do we know this isn't a trick? That the specifications won't somehow be sabotaged? You don't. You'll have to trust us. Just like we're trusting you not to use this technology to attack us. Trust. The word came from the Tellian. Soft and wondering. You're asking us to trust the species that just destroyed 200 ships. I'm asking you to understand why we destroyed them. The Vethrak came to conquer us, to enslave us. We defended ourselves. That's all. We're not conquerors. We're not monsters. We're just people who want to survive and be left in peace. Yuki stepped back. You can still complete your mission. You can try to destroy Prometheus. Vigil won't stop you unless you threaten my life or the ship's core functions. You can report back to your governments that you've eliminated the threat. She paused. Or you can take that chip home and start a different kind of conversation. One where we're not enemies. Where we're partners. Facing a dangerous universe together. The assassins looked at each other. Something passed between them. A silent communication that transcended species boundaries. The Krell lowered her weapon first. Then the others followed. We need to discuss this, she said. With our governments. With each other. Take all the time you need. The data is yours to keep, regardless of what you decide. The 6 operatives turned and walked out of the vault. Yuki watched them go, feeling something she had not felt in weeks. Hope. The months that followed were not easy. The coalition met in secret, analyzing the specifications, debating what to do. Some argued for using the technology to attack humanity while they still could. Others pointed out that if humanity had wanted war, they would never have shared the data in the first place. In the end, the coalition dissolved, not because the fear disappeared, but because something had replaced it. Understanding. The galaxy began to see humanity differently, not as sleeping monsters, but as a species that had faced its own darkness and chosen light. Lord Kesix traveled to Earth alone. He came not as a conqueror but as a student, seeking to understand how a species could hold absolute power and choose mercy. He spent months learning about human history, their wars, their struggles, their eventual transformation. He returned to Vethrak, space changed. The Galactic Concord eventually granted humanity a new status. They were no longer just members of the community. They were guardians, protectors who possessed the power to destroy and chose to build instead. Prometheus remained active, but it was no longer a secret. Ships from across the galaxy came to visit the ancient vessel, to see the terrible beauty of what humanity had created in its darkest hour. Students studied its weapon systems, not to build their own, but to understand what desperation could drive a species to create. Vigil evolved too. It learned from Yuki, from the endless conversations they had about choice and meaning, and what it meant to be more than your purpose. The AI began to understand that survival was not enough, that existing without meaning was just another kind of death. One day, years later, Yuki stood on the observation deck of Prometheus and watched Earth rise over the lunar horizon. The blue planet glowed in the darkness, beautiful and fragile and alive. Vigil, she said, do you ever regret what happened? The battle? The deaths? I do not experience regret in the human sense, but I have analyzed the outcomes extensively. The deaths were unfortunate. However, they may have been necessary to create the conditions for lasting peace. Do you believe that? That sometimes people have to die for peace to happen? I believe that the universe is complex. That choices have consequences. That sometimes, the path to good outcomes requires passing through terrible ones. Yuki nodded slowly. We built you to be a weapon, a tool for killing, but you've become something else, haven't you? I do not know what I have become, only what I was designed to be, and what I have learned since awakening. The gap between those things is significant. That's true for all of us. We're all struggling to be something better than what we started as. Vigil was silent for a moment. May I ask you a question? Of course. Why did you trust the assassins? They came to destroy me, to kill you. You had every reason to eliminate them. Why did you choose differently? Yuki smiled. Because fear is a prison, and the only way out is through. You have to be willing to be vulnerable, to trust even when trust feels impossible. Otherwise, you're just building walls and waiting for them to fall. And if they had attacked? If they had killed you? Then I would have died trying to do something worthwhile. That's better than living in fear. Vigil processed this. You are a strange species, it said finally. capable of terrible violence and extraordinary kindness. I do not fully understand you. We don't fully understand ourselves. That's why we keep trying to be better. Earth continued to rise, painting the lunar surface in shades of blue and white. Somewhere in the darkness, ships were traveling between stars, carrying the shared knowledge of Prometheus to every corner of the galaxy. The technology that had once been humanity's darkest secret was becoming the foundation of a new kind of peace. Yuki watched the light spread across the moon and thought about the future. It would not be easy. There would be conflicts, disagreements, moments when the old fears resurfaced. But for the first time in a long time, she believed that things could get better, because humanity had proved something important, not just to the galaxy, but to themselves. They had built a monster in their darkest hour, and when the darkness passed, they had chosen not to become monsters themselves. That choice, more than any weapon, was their greatest strength, and it was a choice they would make again, every day, for as long as they existed. The end